Okay, so in this practical, I'm going to be showing you how to write functions. We're going to cover tutorial 6 of the list of tutorials, and we're essentially going to create a page which will return the user's BMI or body mass index. By the user puts in their weight in pounds and their height their weight in kilograms, their height in meters, and on clicking submit, what will be returned is their BMI. The BMI is a value which is created by the weight over the height squared. Is the way you calculate this formula, and this what we will do is show you how to do that, but more than that, we will show you how to write the actual syntax for writing functions, so that rather than in the middle of your code kind of getting the weight, dividing it by the height squared, we'll show you how to do it inside a function, such that it makes your code much more readable, such that in the middle of the function you separate, if you like, the calculation from the user interface, the way it looks, the way it appears. Okay, so let's start and go through it now. As you see, let's go into the tutorial, see what we need. There are two labels, two text boxes, and a button. So let's go and do precisely that. First of all, let's create a new page. So add new item, web form. Let's call it find my BMI.aspx. Okay, so this will add the file into Visual Studio, and then we'll just well, I was going to double click on the file to open it, but it's done it for me. So now here we have the page. Now, I mean, I could just copy and paste the code, but rather than do that, I'll actually show you how you do it via the interface. So what we can do first of all is add a label, followed by a text box. Okay, I'm just trying to recreate that interface that you saw, followed by another label, followed by another text box, and underneath that there is a button. So I'm just going to drag the button over there, and then we've got the 5 elements of that interface. Now let's kind of put the text in to make it look right. So if I go to view properties, should be there somewhere, click on the properties window, there it is. In the properties window, then I can set the value of things like the label's text. So there's a label, and I click on text there. So let's kind of refresh, let's return to the practical and see, enter weight in kilograms, enter weight in kilograms, enter height in meters. So type in there label, enter height, so enter weight in kilograms, and for the other label I say enter height in meters. Okay, so we've got the two elements there. So enter height in kilograms, enter height in meters, and underneath at the bottom it says submit. Click on the button again, I change the text, I say submit. Now let's just make sure we're using the same sort of names for the objects that there are in the tutorials. Okay, so so the first label is called label 1, the first text box is called weight, the second label 2, the second text box height, and the button is called submit. But there is also under that an invisible label called BMI, which is what we're going to be using to actually display the output. So let's go back here, and let's make sure we add that empty label. So we drag here the label to here, which is going to have no text in it. Okay, so I get rid of the text so it's not seen. So get rid of that text which says label, and then in the ID we change the ID name to BMI. Okay, because that's what we're going to be using for showing the answer, if you like. Now then, the name of the text box were kind of quite logical. So enter weight in kilograms is called weight, and enter height in meters is called height. Okay, so we've got now our two text boxes with proper names to them, and we've got our submit button, which can't remember exactly what the submit button was called, but let's just remember submit and submit, text equals submit. So the ID is submit as well as the text. So let's kind of go to the ID there and call it submit. So now we've got then everything is set up. We've got everything set up there now. So now let's go into our source. And our source at this point, I'll hide the toolbox for now, should look pretty much the same as what you've got in the tutorial there. Although I've created it by dragging and dropping stuff from the toolbox rather than writing it down directly. So there we are. There's our interface, all the elements that we're going to be showing in our form. Okay. So now, what the next thing we need to do is actually write the kind of BMI function. Okay. So we put this inside a script block. Okay. Function get BMI. And we'll copy and paste that, but now I'll copy and paste it and then I'll show you. Okay, so let's go to the top of the page. Let's create a script block here. Script. Very important to say run at server to make sure that the page therefore knows that it is going to be run by the server and not on the client. Okay, and that means that inside here we can type in VB.NET's code rather than JavaScript. So in here, let's kind of copy and paste that function. Okay, and then I'll copy and paste it, and then I'll explain to you exactly how it works. So this is the syntax of functions in Visual Basic. Okay, you've got the word function. That is, I mean, a function which doesn't return anything is called a subroutine. So you might see also sub and sub, which means that this thing which does something doesn't actually return any value. A function is defined as something which takes inputs and returns a value. So it's going to get BMI, takes two inputs. It takes a single, which means a number. Essentially, in very most simple terms, a single is a type of number. Okay, I've got a feeling it means single byte, but I'm not absolutely certain. But anyway, it is a number. H is another number. Okay, so it takes these two numbers, the width and the height, and what it does is inside the function we have this word dim, which we've come across a few times before already, which means to declare something, so or dimension something. Dimension BMI as a single, so we're saying that BMI, which is a variable inside this function, is going to be of type single, small and smallish number. The actual get the value of BMI means you divide the width, which is what we pass to at the top of the function, by the height. But the height is, where you see this hat 2 means squared, hat 3 means cubed, etc, etc, etc. So that is the operator in code for creating numbers which are powers of other numbers. Okay, so W divided by H squared is equals BMI, and then you return BMI. The return keyword is something which then sends back a value, so it is the output of the function. Okay, so that is get BMI. Now then, to make this work in a very, very easy way, we could, in a very unsafe way, however, what we just need to do is simply type in some code which, when the user presses on the button, they will be able to trigger the function. So if we go back into the tutorial, you will see here. You can see explain. You got there submit click here. This is the function which will be triggered by the user pressing on the button. Okay, so what I'm going to do, rather than type that out, I'm just going to copy and paste that. Okay, so I'm going to take that from here. I'm going to put it into the code. Okay, and I'll just explain that very shortly as well. Okay, so oh dear, something I've not copied quite correctly. So we'll go back into tutorial 6. Okay, I'll copy that. I go back into Visual Studio. Okay, so there's submit click, S as object, so you don't have to worry too much about that. Handle submit click. Again, you don't need to understand that either. So anyway, so here is kind of like 3 more variables being declared: single weight, single height, and single BMI. Single weight is C single. C single is a function which turns text into numbers. So when the user has typed in a value into the weight text box, it's still effectively text. It is text, but numbers have been put in, and then in the height text box also kind of it's text which have been put in. These functions, a lot of these functions beginning with the letter C in Visual Studio, are precisely for turning data of one format into another format. So I could also do it the other way around. There is also the function cstr, which will take, say, a number like 7 or 8 and turn it into a text number. Now at the moment it is a text number, we're turning it into a proper number. So therefore we're changing weight text into single weight. We're changing height text into single height, and then what we're doing is a single BMI equals get BMI. Remember, that's the function we've just seen, which will take two parameters, the weight and the height, and it will return the BMI. Okay, and then we fill the BMI label. Remember, that is the empty label at the moment. We fill its text with the results of this function. CStr, as I said, CStr is a thing which turns a number back into text. So that explains basically what is going on in this particular page. So let's just see if it runs and it'll work. So I'm pressing the play button now, and I'm going to hopefully get it to play inside into Firefox. So here it comes in Firefox. Hopefully it will appear as slow as usual. So let's put enter weight in kilograms, 100, enter height in meters, let's say 1.80, click submit, and that should give us our BMI, which is 30, which I've got a feeling is just on the very cusp of kind of chronically obese. So therefore, a person with those, I happen to be one of those type of people, is kind of like a bit kind of like has aching legs most of the time because they're walking, carrying large amounts of weight. So there's. But anyway, it's calculated all that. But the problem is, of course, as we know, suppose I were to type in Gordon Brown, and I replaced it and height in meters Katie Price. Okay, these and I clicked submit. All that would happen would be kind of like, as you see, a problem. You'd get a cast exception. You get something bad happening. So what we've got to do now is add some validators. Namely, we've got to get this thing to safely work, and that's what I'll do in the second video.